Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 12th edition of SEC Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps on what we're trying to build here, guys, with the brand and the channel. So please, again, just go over to the SEC channel, like and subscribe the channel. It really, really helps out. Also, give us each a follow. I'm your host or co-host, Matthew Miller. This was my co-host, Matt Green, right there. There's his Twitter, and he actually does a Georgia show on the Georgia channel right after this at 8 o'clock. So please go check that out as well. It really helps out the channel. Now, let's jump right into this. Heisman winner. There's been a lot of talk about this. A lot of, I would say, very strong opinions one way or the other. Where do you land on this, Matt?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are acting like Ashton Jeanty just got robbed. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, sir. Nice to be back with you here the second week in a row. But yeah, Ashton Jeanty, great season, flirting with history, almost broke Barry Sanders' rushing record and everything. I saw someone stack up Melvin Gordon's stats from a few years back, and they're almost identical to Ashton Jeanty. Didn't win the Heisman, playing in the Big Ten. I don't know what year that was. Do you know what year Melvin Gordon was a finalist? Is that like 2015?
It might have been 20. I was going to say, yeah, somewhere between 2013 and 2015.
So maybe that's a Derrick Henry Heisman. Maybe it's a Marcus Mariota, somewhere in that, Jameis Winston or something. So that's obviously, he had an amazing season. I was going to be most upset if Jeanty won it. He had a great season, but just in the Mountain West Conference against that level of competition, I didn't really care for that. Same way I feel about Boise State getting a top 4 seed in the playoff. But for Travis Hunter, what he's doing, like, I feel like there's so much kind of animosity just towards Colorado and Deion and everything they're doing. It's like, yeah, the Big 12 isn't the toughest level of competition either. But I saw this just, I don't know, smear campaign online. Just, oh, we're giving the Heisman out for playing a lot of snaps. It's like, no, we're giving the Heisman out because this guy's maybe the best receiver in college football and maybe the best defensive back in college football. It's like Shohei Ohtani. Like, if Shohei Ohtani ever has a good season, it's like on both sides, it's like, yeah, he's the best player in the league. He's the MVP. I don't know what we're arguing about.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. And I'm also looking at Travis Hunter, if he played one way, a lot like Shohei Ohtani did this year, you saw how good of a hitter he was just because he got to do it one way. Whereas when he pitched and hit, he wasn't nearly as good as a hitter, and he's not nearly as good as a pitcher because you have 2 eggs in one basket. Do I think Travis Hunter playing both ways is
he was still pretty damn good at both the last time he did it.
Oh, no, he's still really good, but I'm just saying he didn't have 50-something home runs, bat over 3, and lead the league in hitting as well. But he's still really good. Yeah, so basically, Travis Hunter, to me, playing both ways, he's like a top 10 cornerback and he's a top 10 wide receiver. And when you do that at 2 premier positions like that, you should probably win the Heisman. It's also not one of the biggest robberies. I know people are talking about that. If you do think Jeanty should have won it, there's like 5 or 6 off the top of my head. I personally believe Ndamukong Suh in 2009 should have won the Heisman Trophy. I don't even think that was close. Someone post the stats right after the Heisman ceremony.
Mark Ingram's Heisman?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So if you look at the stats, Ndamukong Suh, they brought up the top 4 in the BCS, I believe, of that year. He had better stats than almost all of their team's defensive lines combined. Like, it's insane. One guy was accounting for what 4 or 5 guys were doing along the defensive line. It's the best year for any defensive player in the history of college football, other than maybe Derek Thomas. Jeez, his name escaped me there for Alabama. I think that might be the other one because he had like 20-plus
like
sacks
28
in college.
Sacks or something like that.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point because there's also, when you're a disruptive defensive lineman, like Jordan Davis finished like 8th in the Heisman as like not putting up like any stats really. He just, what he does just disrupts it. Like Suh, I'm sure, did a lot that wasn't on the stat sheet, as well as having like 10, 12 sacks as an interior defensive lineman. He was just insane that year.
Yeah, he had like 10-plus sacks, 3 blocked punts, 20-plus tackles for loss, 50-something tackles. It was like crazy for a defensive tackle.
And they almost won the Big 12, right? That was a close game. Was that Texas, Nebraska?
Yeah, 13-12.
I want to say that came down like 13-12. Okay.
Yeah, it was a last-second field goal by Hunter Lawrence where it almost went out of bounds there with Colt McCoy, and then the play clock luckily had 1 second left for my Longhorns. We kicked the field goal.
There you go. And Jackson Johnson, appreciate you in the chat there. Melvin Gordon, 2014 Heisman finalist. The first one that jumps off to my head, because I think Mark Ingram, no disrespect to Mark Ingram, but I feel like he is probably he feels like one of the lesser players. Let's not say worst player. He feels like one of the lesser Heisman winners of the last couple decades, right? I think the other one that I always go back to is Jason White. Like, I know Oklahoma, yeah, they put up big stats and everything, but Larry Fitzgerald, excuse me, Larry Fitzgerald was the best player in college football. Like, that dude was just insane. That's like the first one I always think of, that like the best receiver, the best player in the country that year was a wide receiver.
It's funny too, because another Alabama one, I thought Christian McCaffrey was better than Derrick Henry. I didn't understand that one from the jump either. That never made any sense to me, but there is brand bias when it comes to Heisman.
Defend,
just because, I mean, it is closer,
Henry
but
did have like 2,000 yards or something, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think Christian McCaffrey had like 2,500 all-purpose yards and had a lot more touchdowns, I believe. I think he's just a better player.
Definitely. There's definitely an argument for Christian McCaffrey that year, for sure.
And then the most obvious one is Peyton Manning not winning over Charles Woodson. I think everyone thought Peyton Manning was going to beat Charles Woodson, and then Charles Woodson won it that year. People are like, well, he played both ways. He played like maybe 50 snaps at wide receiver. Like
he had like 12 catches on the season or something. Yeah. Champ Bailey actually had a year with like 40, 50 catches at Georgia. But yeah, did have the kick and punt return. I think he like led the nation in like punt return average or yardage or something, and I think he had the touchdown versus Ohio State. He had the Heisman moment that everyone loves. But Woodson was my guy, man. Corners, they're just always my favorite players growing up. Like, those are literally my two favorite players as a child, Charles Woodson and Champ Bailey. So I can't hate on Woodson winning the Heisman.
I love Champ Bailey because I'm a Broncos fan, so I have no issue with him, singing his praises. So yeah, he's one of the, I think, 3 best cornerbacks of all time. So always love to talk about Champ Bailey. But yeah, I think there's bigger snubs, honestly, and I think people are getting hurt over like basically nothing. I think both these guys like could have won. It wouldn't have bothered me if Genty would have won. I understood it. If Hunter would have won, I understood it. There are years where I don't understand why that person won. This isn't one of those years, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like what Travis Hunter did this year, because I was honestly a person coming into the year. I wasn't calling him overrated coming into the year, but I was like, it was kind of like Shohei Ohtani was talked about for 5-6 years. It's like, oh, what this guy can do once he plays both ways. It's like, okay, well, once he does that, then I will be impressed. But you guys just keep talking about it. It's like they talked about how good he was on both sides of the ball. It's like, yeah, but he started getting injured, like 3rd, 4th game last year. Like, maybe you just can't do that in big time college football. So I was like, let's pump the brakes. Let's let him actually do it. Let's actually be one of the best. Because you said top 10 receiver. I mean, I don't know that he's not the best receiver. I don't necessarily, off the top of my head, I don't know a receiver that's like just clearly better than Travis Hunter this year. Like, maybe last year, that was a pretty loaded receiver class. But this year, he might be the best. I mean, literally won the Blitnikoff. I don't know if he literally is the best, but he's got the stats, and he's a great defensive player on top of it. Like, I don't know if he should have won the Bednarik for being the best defensive player in the country, but he's damn good. And it feels like a lot of just the Colorado Deion hatred being kind of rubbed off on him.
Yeah, and this comes with a lot of awards. There's a lot of awards if you actually look into it. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of these voters don't watch college football week to week. They just pay attention to the helmets, because Anthony Hill for Texas, the middle linebacker, should have been a finalist for the butt kiss. If you look at all his stats compared to everyone else, he had better stats than everyone. But they gave it to Danny Stutzman because it's a lifetime achievement award. Like, what he's done in his career is better than what Anthony Hill's done and what the other guys he was against. So they gave it to him. And you see that a lot with all these awards a lot of the time. So you're going to get that. It is what it is. And this is a great tee. I completely agree with this. Toby Gerhart should have won the Heisman over Mark. There's like 3 or 4 guys that year that probably should have won the Heisman over Mark Ingram. I feel like just because he was an Alabama running back and then won it in a minute, they're like, you know what? I think we should just give it to this guy, because if you go back and look at it, he should, like I said, he should have won. But Ndamukong Suh there as well.
If you remember that season, like, he was getting his Darren McFadden is also one of the best that didn't win the Heisman too. He was kind of getting his Darren McFadden on, like, late in that year, just taking the direct snap and just kind of like leading Alabama's offense. Like, he kind of was Alabama's whole offense that year. But it definitely, it's also a team award. Like, being on the #1 undefeated team definitely doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah, you have to be spectacular to have like a down year as a team for a guy on that team to win the Heisman, like Lamar Jackson. That's like I think he has the worst record of any Heisman winner other than one in the modern day. He has the worst one, I'm pretty sure, and it's because he was just so generational. Like that, you weren't gonna not give Lamar Jackson the Heisman Trophy.
Was he
For that year.
9-4 his
I think
Heisman
yeah,
year?
I think so.
I think
Yeah,
Tebow also went 9-4 his year, and yeah, it's year he had 51 total touchdowns or something. I think it's like you can't argue with the stats.
yeah. Once you cross a threshold of just being unreal, they're gonna give it to you. But usually, it does just go to the best player on the best team. Usually, but
Also another comment here from Grape T News. Grew up hating Champ Bailey. Just respectfully disagree. Says they're a Raider fan. Just one side note. I know no one wants to talk about their fantasy. Wants to hear anyone talk about their fantasy football team. Raiders really left me down last night, sir. Needed 5 points from Brock Bowers. Got 4.5. I'm out of the playoffs. I'm still heartbroken after Monday Night Football. But that's all. That's
you
all.
you can't be having anyone from that garbage organization on your fantasy team and relying on them. That's such a bad organization.
Oh, Bowers has been so good, but man,
Yes.
Desmond Ritter was literally the worst quarterback in the entire NFL last year. And what is he, the fourth Raiders quarterback to start this year? Like once I saw that, I was like, oh, I don't feel good about Bowers getting 4 or 5 fantasy points anymore.
They're all bad. You have him, you have Aiden O'Connell, you have Gardner Minshew. I don't even know the other guy if there's 4, but those 3 are. I
Yeah,
mean, they're
maybe he's the
all
third
backup
one.
quarterbacks. Yeah, they're all backup quarterbacks.
It's an entire team of backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I like the Oakland Raiders. I like their vibe. The Las Vegas Raiders didn't do it for me. I know this isn't an NFL podcast, but
no,
they do it.
They don't have any. Well, they don't have any juice because let's be honest here, no one in Vegas actually cares about them. They just go there for when you're in Vegas. You're like, oh, you want to get a Raiders game? It might be cool. That's what they are now. But that will do for the Heisman winner. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel. Also, check out the Ole Miss show every 2 p.m. Eastern time. Really helps grow the brand there. And then check out Mark's call-in show every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning to wrap up the week. We're going to have a Friday night call-in show for post-game because Indiana-Notre Dame play. We will talk about that game a little bit later. And then also check out the Amazon link in the description. Does not change the buying process or experience. All it does is put a little bit of change into Mark's pocket. So we really appreciate when you do that. Next up, transfer portal is popping off. A lot of guys in there, a lot of guys jumping out, going to their new teams, and it's definitely not over with because as soon as the college football playoff ends, you're going to see guys jump in there as well. But for right now, Matt, I need a couple teams, or let's just start out with one that is the transfer portal winner as of this moment.
As of this moment, I think you have to look at maybe Texas A&M, LSU. I know they've both gotten some big transfer portal additions to this point. Oh man, I don't want to jump the gun here. There's still so many guys in the portal, so many guys that haven't even gotten the portal that from some of these playoff teams that we're probably going to see. And also, I mean, one of the we're going winners. We're going winners right now. Who are your winners off the top of your head?
So LSU, biggest winner to me in the portal, and they needed to be. We talked about that last week of there's going to be teams that have to do certain things they probably don't want to in the portal, things that'll make them uncomfortable because of the situation they're in. And I think LSU is a big one for that. Their recruiting class was not as good as it could have been. You lost remember, Decorian Moore and Bryce Underwood during the summer were a part of that class. They were not part of that class anymore. Cade Phillips, the highly touted cornerback, went to Texas. So they were losing recruits, high-level recruits, left and right, like top 75 players. So they had to go in the portal. They got Michael Van Buren, who I'm a lot higher on, I guess, than most people, because when I saw 247 had him ranked as like the 80th best transfer portal guy, I was like, what in the hell are they watching? Because when I watched him Mississippi State, he was pretty damn good. And guess what? He doesn't have much to work with. He's got nice wide receivers, but he really doesn't have many running backs to work with. Their offensive line's not very good. And you got him to sit on the bench for a year behind Garrett Nussmeier. That's a win. You get Jack Pyburn from Florida, pretty good edge player. Is he a great player? No, but he's a nice rotational piece. You get Berrien Brown from Kentucky. To me, will pop off in that offense with his speed and Garrett Nussmeier's accuracy, really good. They got an interior offensive lineman from Virginia Tech, and they got a decent cornerback in Jakeem Jackson from Florida. So you got 4 of the top 80 portal players. I think LSU's done a really good job during this early time in the portal.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. And another one I like too is Auburn. Like this is what Auburn should have done last. Like not that. Oh shoot, I'm blanking on. I know they got the Stanford quarterback, Ashton
Ashton
Daniels, and who's the other
Daniels,
one they just got out of the portal? The
Jackson
quarterback
Arnold,
transfer. Oh shoot,
Jackson
and
Arnold.
who's the other one? And Jackson Arnold. There you go. I was blanking on Jackson Arnold. This is what they should have done. Like not that these guys are great or anything, but this is what they should have done last year. Like I didn't understand. Like just it's a numbers game. Just a volume game, right? Just someone to win this quarterback battle. Like just the fact that they went into the season with Peyton Thorne and just accepted that, I never understood that.
No, I didn't understand it either, and I agree it is definitely a volume game when you don't know who
Am
your
I cutting out?
quarterback
Did you
is.
get me?
Yeah, I got you. You're cutting out a little bit, but we got you. Um, yeah, it's definitely a volume game. I think Auburn's done a decent job. Now, do I think either of those guys are great pickups? No. I think Jackson Arnold's fine. Ashton Daniels, I actually think, has a pretty good chance at winning that job from what I've seen. Because let's face it here, Stanford doesn't have much talent anymore. That's kind of a terrible program overall ever since Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw left. So I actually think he has a better chance at Auburn than he did at Stanford, obviously. But I also think he has a better chance of beating out Jackson Arnold because Jackson Arnold had talent at Oklahoma. Now, were the wide receivers great? No. Was the offensive line great? No. But he has more talent at Oklahoma than he did than Ashton Daniels did at Stanford. So I think he's got a shot to win the job. I don't know if I consider them a winner at this point. Another team I think is a big winner, and they always seem to be a winner in the transfer portal, is Ole Miss. Ole Miss with Princewell from Nebraska off the edge. They got Patrick Kutas from Arkansas. They're just raiding Arkansas's roster at this point, taking anyone they want from there. Luke Haas from Arkansas. They also took Deshaun Stripling from Oklahoma State. So you got 4 pretty quality players out of the portal there. A couple other guys from Arkansas as well. They're doing a really good job, and there's a chance Eric Singleton's in that running too, and he's a really big get. I know he visited Texas today. So whoever can get him, that's something going to be at a win as well. And I think Texas has done a decent job as well. I wouldn't consider them a winner just yet. If they land like a Zachariah Branch or Eric Singleton, I would push them in that category. But my 2 big winners right now are LSU and Ole Miss.
Yeah, Zachariah Branch is an interesting one, and his brother Zion Branch. Apparently, they're a package deal wherever they're going. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, I don't know if Texas, that's the thing. They may not be in that running with Zion Branch because we have too many safeties as it is. So if they really do want to be a package deal, I don't see them going to Texas. I've seen Michigan, LSU. What else do I see? Miami, of course, they're always in it. It's going to be interesting there. Now, those are our winners. Let's talk
Georgia
about
is in that conversation.
Oh, they are?
I know Georgia isn't, but at this point, Georgia just doesn't seem like the team that like gets into bidding wars for guys. Like I think that's just what I'm saying as someone who's not getting the big time guys in the portal. But like Eric Singleton was one that hit the portal. First stop is in Athens, and then a week later, like Georgia's not even on the radar. Like I think Georgia's not necessarily paying that top dollar for guys out of the portal and for guys out of high school. Kirby Smart apparently said that a freshman will never be the highest paid player on Georgia's roster.
And I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think that's a pretty smart way to do things. But I mean, it's hard to, if they win the national championship again, I think it's more of an Alabama, Nick Saban situation where they can take these guys on discounts because the guys are willing to come there on discounts because they know they'll just go to the NFL and win national championships. You saw that with Alabama. They were able to do that because of those 2 reasons. And guys would take a couple $100,000 less there than they would at other places.
Yeah, and I think that's what it takes. And I think that's what Georgia's definitely banking on is guys, take a little bit less to be in a winning situation because, and also let's not ignore the fact that Georgia is still one of the big market teams, for lack of a better term, in college football. So Georgia's obviously still paying guys what they need to be paid, but I think they just have a different approach in terms of how they acquire those guys.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to transfer portal losers. I'll start out with this one. Number 1's Oklahoma. They are being absolutely decimated by the transfer portal. As a Texas fan, it's beautiful. Breathes a little bit of a warm tingle to my heart and to my soul. It's beautiful to watch. They've lost 10 plus players. They've lost 5 wide receivers, including Nick Anderson and Brennan Thompson. really the only guy returning healthy from that wide receiver room is Deion Burks. He decided to come back, but they have lost everyone. They don't have a quarterback as of this moment. I know John Mateer most likely ends up there. Their offensive line isn't very good because everyone that they had there either transferred out or is going to the NFL that was good. And then you still have the guys that were left over that aren't that good. You don't have any wide receivers. Bauer Sharp left to LSU. That's another one I forgot at this point to get that went to LSU. And the defense, a lot of those guys on defense are gone. Deshaun McCullough also transferred out, and Danny Stutzman's going to the NFL along with Billy Bowman. So, like, what the hell is this team going to be next year? What about, are they part of your losers? Do you have another one?
I think that's a good one. I think the first one, I think, or you got Kentucky, losing Dane Key and Barion Brown both to the portal. And Barion Brown, did he commit to Texas A&M or was
LSU?
Was he an LSU guy? He's another LSU guy. Yeah, they've been cleaning up. I feel like one thing I wonder, is Penn State a loser in the portal because of losing the backup quarterback that has actually impacted their season a little bit? Was it the Wisconsin game that he came in the second half, and now this guy's not going to be on the roster for the college football playoff? Maybe we as a college football public are losers for maybe some of these guys on playoff teams hitting the portal. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like Georgia Tech now, like you had Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago hit the portal. You had Ivy that went to Ole Miss hit the portal. Now you got Eric Singleton. Like, this is several years in a row that Georgia Tech has had like one of the 5-10. I mean, Singleton's literally number one right now. Like one of the 5-10 best players, like actual impact players coming out of the portal. And, you're not able to keep some of that talent that you recruited out of high school.
Yeah, and sticking to the SEC, you got my other loser. I have two losers down in the SEC. Kentucky. You lose your top two wide receivers. Did Barion Brown have a down year for Kentucky? Absolutely, but he's still a really good, dynamic player. Dane Key, I think, underratedly had a really good year. I think he had like 800 receiving yards, and they didn't really have a very dynamic passing game. They had no real quarterback threat. And that's really good. Whoever ends up getting him, he has not committed anywhere. And then Keyshawn Silver, interior defensive lineman, he's transferred already one time. He was decent in Kentucky. He wasn't great, but someone's going to get a decent player in Keyshawn Silver, whether that's Michigan or someone else. I know that's where he's rumored to go at this point. But yeah, Kentucky, really big loser. And it's interesting because the two teams I named, Brent Venables needs a really good portal class, because if he doesn't, he's probably getting fired at the end of next year. Same with Mark Stoops. You need a good portal class because you're probably getting fired if you don't have a good year. And honestly, guys, I think these are two just broke boy programs. I'm going to straight up say it. That's what I think they are at this point. I don't think they have that type of money, or they're just not willing to invest that type of money. I don't know which one's which. Because Kentucky does invest in their basketball team. So I would be willing to say they have some money to spend towards football. Maybe they just don't want to. Whereas Oklahoma, I don't really think they spend in athletics at all. They really don't have that type of money. So it's going to be interesting how that affects them, because do they just fall out of that elite tier of college football, which they've been in for basically the past 50 years?
Yeah, because that's what it comes down to. They definitely have the money, but are they committed to spending that to compete in football? That remains to be seen. You also got USC, losing Miller Moss and Deuce Robinson, two of the higher rated guys in the portal. I guess Miller Moss lost the starting job, but I don't know that Maeva is better than Miller Moss. I don't think he's proved anything in those final couple of games. Like, did he end up at Louisville? Is that where Miller Moss, I want to say?
Yeah, he went to Louisville.
Committed. So, yeah. So, I mean, maybe that's a sleeper. Louisville's been one of the better teams in the ACC. If they get improved quarterback play, like that could definitely go a long way for them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's still a lot of good players in the portal. It's going to be interesting how that all ends up. And also I'm very interested to see, as soon as those games go final, those playoff teams, how many of those guys start to transfer out. That's going to be very, very interesting. I think you're going to see a decent amount, actually, because there are, like, Texas has been semi-aggressive, but they're not as aggressive as I thought they've been so far. But it's going to be very, very interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot of good players left or going into the portal very soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't even name Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch and top of the guys that USC is losing. So coming off the worst season of Lincoln Riley's coaching career and now losing some of your best players in the portal, I don't know. What does Lincoln Riley do? How much longer is he in Los Angeles?
I think he's gone if they repeat what they did this year next year. I think he has to go 8-4 next year. If he's not 8-4 or better, I think he's gone.
Yeah, I could see that.
That will do it for transfer portal winners and losers. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This is the 12th edition of SEC Live. We really appreciate it, guys. Also, check out in the description the Amazon link. It does not change the buying experience or process. Just put a little bit of change into Mark Rogers' pocket. Also, check out Mark's call-in shows every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday post-game, plus Sunday morning. Recapping that week of college football, and there will be a lot to recap this week. Let your opinion and voice be heard there at the Voice of College Football. And also check out the Old Miss Show every 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It really helps out what we're trying to build over on that channel. Now, we do have some games to discuss. Let's kick it off with this first. Actually, we'll go in order here. Let's kick it off with this one. Indiana's getting 7.5 points versus Notre Dame. Over-under is 51. Matt, what is your lean? What do you like about this game? What are your keys to the game? Stuff of that nature.
I feel like when this bracket came out, I feel like this is the game that has become the sneakiest game of the four to me, because I think everyone just kind of left Indiana for dead after the loss to Ohio State. That's probably the first game most people watch them play this year, and the last game, and they see the 11-1 and they just don't really think anything of it, and they just don't really buy it at all. And obviously, there's some validity to that of how weak of a Big Ten schedule they played. But Notre Dame sitting over here, obviously they're the football brand. Indiana is not. But I don't know really what Notre Dame. These teams feel like they have almost identical resumes in terms of, yeah, they've stomped a lot of the weaker teams that they've played. But Indiana's won losses to Ohio State, and Notre Dame's won losses to Northern Illinois. Those are very different. So while 7.5, you said? Like, yeah. I feel like I'm thinking Indiana keeps this game closer. And man, I don't know if I'm going to pick Indiana to win, but I feel like I'm almost trying to convince myself that Indiana is going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm very conflicted on this game. I think between the Indiana Notre Dame game and the SMU Penn State game, you're going to get a tight game in one of them. I just don't know which one yet. My gut has not swung one way or the other. I usually get better at picking these games later in the week. Like usually Friday, I have a pretty good feeling about who's going to win. It's usually right. I don't have that feeling right now. I do agree with you. I think these two teams are semi-similar. I think they're both – I mean, Indiana does like to rely on the pass a little bit, but they're not an explosive team. They're more of a methodical, go on long drive, hit you with precision passes, short and intermediate. They do have some explosiveness, but again, that's versus lesser competition. I don't expect that versus Notre Dame. I honestly think it's going to come down to which quarterback doesn't make that untimely error in this game, because Riley Leonard is a great athlete, but I don't know if he's a great quarterback. I know I'm just going to be straight, but I don't think he is a great quarterback. I think he's a great athlete. I think Curtis Rourke is a good precision passer, like I said, but he's not going to be able to beat you with his legs. So you're able to get pressure on him. I do think he can make a mistake or two. And it's going to be interesting what quarterback this comes down to. I would take the under here. I think that's the easiest play on the board. But I'm going to take Indiana plus 7.5. I don't love it, but that's what I would take in this game. I don't love it though.
I'm with you there, because I think there's a chance they can win this game. Like, one thing I don't know what to make of is, I don't know if you've seen the ticket prices for some of these playoff games.
Oh, yeah.
And this is by far the most expensive average ticket, and I don't know what to make of that. Are the Hoosiers are they starving for this? They're like, hey, we've wanted to be a football school this whole time. Or is it like Notre Dame fans still scarred from Georgia taking over their stadium a few years back? Or they're like, look, it doesn't matter the cost. We are going to buy every ticket in that stadium. I don't know what to make of it. Maybe SeatGeek or someone's got the stats on who's buying those playoff tickets. But at Notre Dame, I tend to think they're going to win this game, but I'm with you. I think Indiana can win this, so I would definitely take Indiana to cover the spread.
Yeah, I would as well. And I think the ticket prices have to do with these teams really don't play each other, and they're in-state rivals. And I think people just want to go to the game and experience it for – I don't even know the last time they played, honestly. But, yeah, it's crazy. I saw some screenshots.
Last
really?
Time they
yes. So it's been what? That's 33 years. Yeah, it's been a very long time. So, and it's interesting because I saw the hotel prices at one point, like $1,100 a night by the stadium. So, this hotel company's just jacking up the rate because they know people are going to stay overnight. But that's crazy to me. I think it's going to be a fun game. This is the most expensive game. It's the game with the least amount of tickets left. Whereas like SMU Penn State, half that stadium could be empty. I saw the tickets on today with SeatGeek or whatever, and there were a lot left, which is very surprising. But again, you're not going to have very many students there, in my opinion, because they're going to be home on Christmas break. So that's going to be fine against
I
it.
guess geography is probably just a big factor that everyone in Indiana and in Bloomington and South Bend it's an easy trip to get to this one.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about this one. SMU versus Penn State. Over under here is 54 points. I don't know how I feel about this game. I really think this comes down to, can Kevin Jennings make enough plays? Because SMU has some weapons on the outside. I think their offensive line's decent, but their defense isn't very good. Penn State, I think, will be able to stifle their offense for the most part, but I don't know, because Kevin Jennings, guy has a lot of potential, and you see it very often. He's a good football player, but I don't know if I can trust him to make a dozen 10 to 12 plays in this game, which they're going to need, just based on him running around, scrambling, and making plays with his legs, or extending plays and throwing downfield, because that's what I think it's going to take. They're going to have to hit some explosive plays, because you can not methodically go down the field on Penn State with this defense. Oregon had to hit explosive plays. They did go on a couple long drives, but for the most part, it was a lot of explosive plays by their speedy wide receivers. And I don't think SMU has anyone like Tez Johnson, which really helped out Oregon in that game, beating up the Penn State secondary. So it's going to be interesting. And can they block Abdul Carter? A lot of teams struggle with that, and SMU's offensive line is not nearly as good as the other teams that have struggled with him. So that's going to be very interesting as well.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. I think I might be like most people, and I'm kind of disrespecting what SMU did this season. I think they did get in the playoff despite losing the ACC championships. They got a little bit of respect there, but I don't know. This team is obviously, improved since the one regular season loss, and they were really, one of the better teams in college football down the stretch. Oddly enough, the 45-37 game against Oregon for Penn State kind of throws me off. It's like if they would have just lost to Oregon 20-13, I'd be like, I know who Penn State is. Seeing them give up a 40 spot, getting a shootout like that, I'm like, wait, I don't even know who this team is right now. But I just feel confident. I don't trust Penn State when they're playing the elite teams in college football, and I think that for good reason, right? But SMU is not one of the elite teams in college football. And I feel like if there's one game on the slate this weekend that's a blowout, I think this one has the highest blowout potential by far. I just don't think SMU is going to consistently move the ball on this defense. Obviously, Oregon just put up a 45 spot in the Big Ten championship, but SMU is not Oregon, right? So I tend to think Penn State kind of puts the shackles on SMU in this one and wins something like 30-14 or something, and just kind of takes care of business.
Yeah, that's where I am too. I just don't think SMU is going to be able to do it consistently. Again, now if Kevin Jennings has the game of his life and he's just going off, I could see that. But that's the only possibility for me to pick them, and I'm not going to pick them. I agree. I think Penn State wins this game 28-13, 28-17, something like that. So I would take the under here as well. I think you're going to get the under in a lot of these games because of the weather. And then you also, whenever you get two pretty good teams evenly matched going up against each other for the most part, you usually hit the under. And at least that's what I found. I could be completely wrong on the bet, but that's what comes to mind when I think about unders and overs in these type of games. But so we're both on Penn State there to cover, win, and also I believe we would both take the under there as well. The next game up.
What's that over under?
54.
54. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just because SMU's offense might not do much. I really like Penn State's defense.
Next up, we'll talk about the game at 4 Eastern time on TNT. Texas and Clemson. Clemson is now, at least last time I checked, are 12-point underdogs, which it's moved up. It opened at 10.5, went up to 11 pretty quickly, then moved up to 11.5. Now it's all the way to 12, at least on DraftKings it was when I checked. Could have changed by now. I don't know. The over-under here is 52. How do you feel about this game?
I'll be honest, I'm surprised that the line is where it is. I've been kind of surprised on kind of the way people have talked about Texas all season. It feels like they're like one of the elite teams out there, but it's like, just believe me when I say they're one of the elite teams, right? Just they haven't necessarily proven they're one of the elite teams. It's just a vibe that they're one of the elites out there. I think people are sleeping on Clemson. I really like Clemson to cover the 12 points, just because I still don't know what to make of Texas, and I'm not even that high on Clemson. I think this game, when you're talking about unders, like this game has under written all over it to me, because as like Texas has been like one of the better offenses in the country between the 20s, and then it's just it feels like a lot of their games they just don't have as many points as they should have in terms of how much they've dominated the game. Like Georgia game was definitely one of those games, 6 points despite dominating the first 2 quarters of that game. So there's just something, especially Texas A&M was definitely a game where they dominated and the scoreline didn't really show it. So I think Clemson is like, I don't really buy them because they had basically lost to all the good teams they played before SMU. So it's not that I'm high on Clemson, but I think everyone else is too low on Clemson, that I kind of like this to be like a 24-14, 24-17 type game that like is a game into the fourth quarter, even though it feels like it might feel like Clemson's not, maybe kind of like Texas A&M, like the Texas A&M Texas game. Like it doesn't feel like they're in the game, but they're still mathematically in the game in the fourth quarter. It could be that kind of vibe. I just don't really see Clemson getting blown out in this one.
Yeah, I don't completely disagree with that at all. I mean, Texas does struggle in the red zone. It's the weakest part of the team. If they were average in the red zone, just average, they would probably be the SEC champion right now. They'd probably be 12-1, but they aren't. They're god awful in the red zone. They've gotten even worse. So 2022, they were 13th in red zone scoring. 2023, they were 79th in red zone scoring. And this year, they are 106th in red zone scoring. So they are abysmal. And this is the craziest thing. So in the last 6 quarters between Georgia and Texas A&M, just 6 quarters, not including the overtime, Texas has like 100 or 620 something or 630 something yards of offense, and they have 16 points.
Wow.
So, yeah, they move the ball at will on any defense in between the 20s, but they struggle to score. And that's why I agree with you. I think that's how this game's going to go. I think Texas does win the game because they're the better football team, and that's basically what they've been able to do is when they're the better team, they've been able to win. When the talent is pretty close, like Georgia and Texas are, and then you're not able to execute in the red zone, you lose the game. I don't think the talent's equal here. I think Texas is a more talented football team than Clemson at this point. I think they're a better football team than Clemson at this point. But I do think it's going to be somewhat of a struggle fest. I think Texas is going to win 26-17. It's going to be closer. The scoreboard is going to say that, and you're going to wonder, why is this game so close when Texas has 430, 420 yards of offense. Clemson has 250, 260 yards of offense, and you're wondering, why was this game so close? It's because Texas lacks the ability to score points in the red zone. That's why this game will be closer than it should. That's why if we do win this game and we play Arizona State, that'll be the same story. And then if we play in Ohio State, Tennessee, and Oregon, and we do that, we'll lose, because that's the story of this Texas season. It sucks to say that, but unless something changes, then that's what's going to happen. Now, if they do get better in the red zone, something magically happens and they go on a 4-game stretch, I think they win the national championship because they have that type of defense. Will it? I can't say that. There's been no proof of that, so I'm not going to say that. But I do think Texas wins, but I would take Clemson in the points here.
Do you think Texas fans, just the overall vibes, you probably know the vibes better than me, do you think they are respecting Clemson at this point?
Oh, yeah. I don't see anything disrespectful that I've seen of like, oh, we're going to kill them, da-da-da-da-da. They respect him because they know who the coach is. They know the talent there. They know Cade Klubnik. I mean, grew up in the state of Texas, won the 6A division championship in Texas, beat Quinn Ewers in that game for the state championship. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of respect there. But I just think we know, Texas fans know that we have more talent than them at this point. Like, our defense is loaded. Their defense has a couple good players, but they're nowhere near the, national championship years with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson talent level.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So we both take Clemson in the points there. I think we're both on the
Man, we're
under
agreeing
as
too much here, man.
I know. I know we are. We're also on the under there as well in that game. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this turns out because I think we're literally on everything the same. So let's see how this one goes. Tennessee is getting 7 points versus Ohio State. The over under here is 46.5. Game time temperature on this is going to be like 20 degrees, so that's going to be interesting. This will dispel the narrative if the SEC team comes south and wins, or it's close at least. Of this can't play in the snow or cold or whatever BS I hear all the time about that. So that's going to be interesting. How do you feel about this game?
Yeah, maybe for one of like the true Southern teams, like Florida or something. I think Tennessee. I think it snowed like earlier this week in
Yeah,
Knoxville.
it is.
So there is that. I feel like this is the sexiest game of the weekend, right? Like this is when people heard about a 12-team playoff. Like these are the kind of games you imagine getting in the first round. I I go back and forth about this Tennessee team. Like on one hand, like it feels like Tennessee's one of the most dangerous teams in the playoff, even though they're the 9 seed. But at the same time, like I wouldn't be surprised if they just laid an egg and we're out in round 1, you know? And not that you have to lay an egg to lose to someone like Ohio State or by any means, but to me, I'm getting vibes of I don't know if you remember 2021 Georgia Michigan in the first round of the playoff. That was coming off of the SEC championship loss to Alabama, and so much toxicity among the Georgia fan base. And if Stetson Bennett should be the starter, yada yada. It felt like there was all this noise, and then the team just came out and was absolutely on point and had one of the best games I've ever seen from a Kirby Smart. Were they up 28-0 or 28-3 or something in the first half of that one? It was insane. But I'm kind of getting that vibe that with Ohio State, there's just so much negativity right now. They're getting a home playoff game here. Like, I still don't know how good Tennessee is, like through 12 games. Like the 2 times they went on the road 3 times this year, lost at Arkansas, they played at Oklahoma too. They beat Oklahoma. That's probably their best road win. Beat Vanderbilt on the road. They were down 14-0 to Vanderbilt early, but lost to Georgia and Arkansas, both on the road. Like this, I think it's a real thing with Josh Heupel's teams going on the road. They have not had a lot of success, and this team in general, at home or on the road, I mean, they had like 3 straight weeks where they didn't score in the first half. Like they've gotten off to a lot of slow starts. This offense, we all talk about what it could be, but not enough people talk about what it is, and it's been an average to below average offense in the SEC this year. The defense has been great. The running game has been really good. We're all waiting for Nico to be that guy. And if he is that guy, then they can win the national championship. But if he's the guy that he's been through the first 12 games, which is probably more likely, I think there's a real chance that we're looking up and Ohio State's up 21-0 at halftime.
Yeah, I think these teams kind of mirror each other, honestly. Like good but not great quarterback play. Ohio State has a little bit more weapons at the wide receiver position than Tennessee does, but still good weapons on the outside. Both really good running backs, both shaky offensive lines, both really good defenses. So it's going to be interesting how this game turns out. I'm going to be straight up honest. I saw some numbers about Vegas. I think 70-something% of the money is on Tennessee +7, and the line hasn't moved. That tells me everything I need to know. If I'm laying money, I'm taking Ohio State in this game. I changed my mind yesterday. I said Tennessee would cover. If Vegas knows something, if it's 70+% of the money on one team and the line isn't moving, it's because they're confident in that other team. So I would take Ohio State here to win the game and cover the spread. I think they'll come out angry, pissed off, and like you said, I think they'll kind of punch them in the mouth early. I think Tennessee will get back in the game, but I'm going to take Ohio State to cover here and win. I just think they have something to prove. Now, do I think they end up winning a national championship or going to a national championship? No. But do I think they beat Tennessee? Yes, I do. I think they're a overall better team than Tennessee in certain areas, and I think they'll be able to get things going through the air. At least they should try to get things going through the air more than they did versus Michigan. Do not stick to that running game plan. It will not work versus that Tennessee front 4 and front 7. You got to air it out a little bit more because that is the weakness of the Tennessee team is their secondary, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, I don't know what they were doing versus Michigan. Like this offense hasn't been great all season by any means, but like 10 points versus Michigan. Like Michigan has a good defense, but I don't know. It just felt like, running your head into a door over and over again, right? And expecting different results. Like I just tend to think we're going to see a better Ohio State team, and we have seen a better Ohio State team this year. Like Tennessee, they have the win over Alabama, and then it's not much else. There's not much else to hang their hat on throughout this regular season schedule. So I think at the end of the day, I'm not buying Tennessee more than I'm buying Ohio State. I'm selling Tennessee, I should say. So I think this one it probably isn't a blowout because these two defenses are so good. But I could see Ohio State winning like 28-14 or something like that, and just kind of taking care of business.
Okay, so you would take the under here?
Ooh, I would definitely take the under. I think there's also a chance this game is played in the teens. Like, and Tennessee could keep it close if Ohio State does what they did against Michigan or Penn State for that matter. Tennessee is just built more like they feel like a Big Ten team, right? Like this defense and this running game. Like obviously they probably have some more SEC speed. That's what we tend to see the difference in the SEC. But do they have more than Ohio State? Ohio State's kind of that Big Ten team that is built different than most of the conference. So I would definitely go the under here. I don't see a lot of points being scored in this one, and I definitely don't see Tennessee scoring a lot of points in this one.
So we're going to disagree. This is our first disagreement. I'm taking the over. I think this game gets over slightly. I think it's like 48, 49 points, but everything else we agree on. So we'll see if that's the difference maker in our betting here. But it's going to be interesting. I did have a teaser on all these. I will say that. I didn't bet the original lines, but I did have a teaser. So I took Tennessee plus 13. I took Indiana plus 13.5. I took Penn State minus 2.5. And I took Texas minus 6. Or I took Texas actually minus 5.5 because that's what it was when I bet it. So I did bet on these, but with teaser lines because I'm not trusting myself with the other ones.
No, I feel you there, man.
So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been the 12th edition of SEC Live. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Again, find us on Twitter. That is my handle right there, Matthew MS97. And then we have Matt Green's handle right here as well at Matt_W_Green. So go find him as well. And then also check out the Georgia channel. Mark left it in the description because he is going live in about 9 minutes. So we need to get him off here to do his show. And Mark's call-in show every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Stick around for those. And please hit the like button and subscribe over there as well. And then check out the Ole Miss show every 2 p.m. Eastern time. They do a really good show over there. I know Leanne's also doing a transfer portal show here live for you every day, it seems like. So please hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, guys, we really appreciate you for watching, and catch us next week at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time every Tuesday.
Thanks, man.